What is going on, you guys? I'm Tyler, and I'm here to let you know that Black Panther is no perfect movie. So, Black Panther takes place about a week after the events of Civil War, and T'Challa, played once again by Chadwick Boseman, returns to Wakanda so that he can take his rightful place as king. But he finds that his kinship is being challenged by an American with very mysterious ties to Wakanda, only known as Killmonger, played by Michael B. Jordan. This movie has hands down the best cinematography in any Marvel movie that I've ever seen. The camera moves so swiftly, and a lot of takes are done almost like a Spielberg oneer, where it was filmed in one take in multiple different angles to make it seem as if there actually was a cut in between. And the action scenes are a lot of fun to watch. Even when there are CG doubles being used instead of real actors, it's the choreography and the creativity of the stunts that make it entertaining to watch. There's even a long take fight near the middle of the movie that I wasn't expecting, but I've always wanted to see something like that in a superhero movie. And I was kind of looking for obvious cuts, sort of like in Kingsman, where they quickly pan over to try and do a new take and hide a cut, but I couldn't find anything like that in this fight. Even though there obviously were CG elements being incorporated into it, it was seamless. You knew it was there, but you didn't care because it looked good either way. The very first fight scene is a little too underlit, and occasionally throughout the movie there are too many quick cuts, but for the most part the action is filmed in steady wide takes, and you can see that the actors are doing all their own stunts. And the thing that I loved most about this movie was how it portrayed Wakanda and its culture. Just the fact that they're pretending to be a poor nation when really they're hiding in plain sight as the most thriving nation in the world does kind of play with the stereotype that Africa is a poor continent in general, when really there are countries within it that do have resources that they can depend on and they can thrive from it as a result. The blend of futuristic technology with traditional African culture is displayed very effectively for the set design and the costume design, and it stands out as something we haven't seen not just in a superhero movie, but just in any mainstream movie, sci-fi or fantasy or whatever that I've ever seen. And the technology itself can be used by really any nation when you think about it. But what makes it stand out here is that it's designed, again, in the African culture. They have spears that also have tasers within them, they have force field shields, and of course T'Challa's advanced suit that he can stow away within his own necklace. And even the soundtrack itself does kind of display the cultural differences in this movie. Because when T'Challa's mainly in power, the soundtrack is traditional African music, and it all sounds really good, especially the percussion. But when Killmonger arrives and questions T'Challa's kinship, the music switches to current rap. And it does kind of illustrate the way that even though T'Challa and Killmonger are both black, there are vast majorities between them culturally and philosophically. Chadwick Boseman does a great job at showing how his inner feelings can conflict with what he thinks is best for his own country. His arc mainly revolves around wanting to live up to the success of his father, and he doesn't think that he can just because he couldn't save him in Civil War. But when he starts to learn more about Killmonger and realizes that his father may have influenced him to become the man that he is today, T'Challa decides that maybe it is best to right the wrongs of the past as opposed to trying to live up to them. And Michael B. Jordan's been getting a lot of buzz for being one of the MCU's best villains, and yeah, he actually is. His character motivation, in a subtle way, does kind of revolve around how it's different to be black in America than it is to be black in Africa, because people in Wakanda don't have to rely on other nations for their success. They can easily depend on each other, and they don't want to share their own culture because they're afraid that other people from different countries can abuse that power. But Killmonger, who grew up in the States and has been a victim to racism and oppression, feels as if because African Americans are pretty much their descendants, that Wakanda has an obligation to help those who are in need through the use of deadly force. And there are so many scenes where you can actually identify with him on that. Now, this movie has a huge supporting cast of really talented actors. Angela Bassett, Forrest Whitaker, Martin Freeman, Sterling K. Brown even for like 10 minutes does a really good job. But the three that stuck out the most to me were Daniel Kaluuya, Letitia Wright, and Michonne from Walking Dead. Sorry, I can't pronounce her real life name. I apologize. Michonne's character in this movie is not only the most badass out of all of them, she has some of the best choreography in the movie, but she is extremely strictly loyal to the point where if Killmonger were to overthrow T'Challa and take the throne, she feels as if she would have no choice but to agree with that. And even though you don't want to admit it, that is what you agree to when you become a part of the King's special forces. You don't choose the King chooses you, and you almost feel dirty agreeing with stuff like that. Letitia Wright is one of the better comic relief characters I've seen in a long time because her jokes were really good. They never felt forced. She takes things seriously when she needs to, and her contributions to the gadgets that T'Challa uses is what makes her a badass as opposed to just being a fighter. And Daniel Kaluuya actually surprised me a lot because he's a character who, without giving anything away, switches sides. And normally that character can be really annoying and stupid, but here it actually does make sense, and it gives into how good of a manipulator Killmonger can be when it comes to his philosophical beliefs. I only have two minor complaints. One is that during the first act, there's this segment where T'Challa is focused more on being the Black Panther, going on missions and his vigilante activities throughout the rest of the world that was really fun, but I felt like they could have spent a little bit more time from that segment incorporating it into the Wakandan culture so that we can learn a little bit more about it. But I am glad that they left it up to us to decide how this culture works, and I get the feeling they're going to be showing more stuff like that in future movies, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. And the other thing is that I didn't really like the relationship between T'Challa and his ex-girlfriend played by Lupita Nyong'o. Like, they both give good performances, and they have decent enough chemistry, but the whole thing is about them being exes and still working together, and it's just like, why did you even break up in the first place? You could have been a couple in this, and it wouldn't have affected anything else in the movie. Black Panther is such a refreshing change of pace from other Marvel movies. The action, the cinematography, the performances, the score, and most of all, the culture of this movie, all of those things combined make for a really impactful film. And for that reason, I'm going to give Black Panther a 4.5 out of 5. Guys, thanks as always for watching, and if you've seen Black Panther, what did you think about it? Be sure to let me know in the comments below. Be sure to like, subscribe, check out my other reviews at NoPerfectMovie.com. And once again, thank you all very much for watching. Take care.